Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Kentucky Cold. I'm Courtney. I'm a criminal justice major with a passion for the unsolved. I like to do these videos in the hopes that putting the information out there may jog a memory and get some more tips in to get some of these cases solved. We've been talking about the Bardstown Five. It's a string of murders that's happened across Bardstown. The one we're talking about today, I believe, is related to what we talked about the first week, which was the murder of Officer Jason Ellis. The murders from last week, the Netherlands, I don't feel are connected to any of the other Bardstown cases, but it was important to mention them because that case needs to be solved as well. Today, we're going to talk about Crystal Rogers, and her case isn't a cold case. Her murderer has been caught and charged, but her body was never found, and I feel that it's connected to Jason Ellis and the one that we'll be talking about next week. I'm going to leave some information out today because it'll be mentioned next week, and I want everything to be tied together the way it should be. So I don't want to jump ahead of myself at all. So let's talk about Crystal. Crystal was a 35-year-old mother. She had 5 children, 4 of which were from a previous marriage or relationship, and her youngest was with her then boyfriend, Brooks Houck. Crystal was last seen on July 3rd, 2015. Brooks says that when he went to bed that night, Crystal was playing on her phone, and when he woke up the next morning, her and her car were both gone. After failed attempts to contact her, her family became concerned, and her mom reported her missing on July 5th, 2015. That same day, her car was found along Bluegrass Parkway at the mile 14 marker. Her phone and purse were still in the car, and the keys were still in the ignition. It had a flat tire. Brooks was brought in for questioning, and during questioning, his brother, who you may remember from the first video, Nick Houck, who was a police officer with the Nelson County Sheriff's Department at the time, called Brooks and told him not to talk. So he didn't. The next day, Nick was called in to testify in front of a grand jury, and this is when he was starting to look suspicious, because around this time, Nick stopped cooperating with the police. But he did agree to do a polygraph with Kentucky State Police, and they did that on July 20th, 2015. The examiner who did the polygraph expressed grave concerns with Ben Police Chief Rick McCubbin, who you may also remember from the first episode because he was the police chief at the time that Jason Ellis was murdered. On October 16th, 2015, Nick was fired from the Nelson County Sheriff's Department by Chief Rick McCubbin, and Rick McCubbin says that firing Nick was one of the best decisions that he had ever made in his 35 years as police chief, because he said you can't quite put your finger on it, but it just felt like the right thing to do. After being fired from the sheriff's department, Nick was officially named a suspect in the disappearance of Crystal. A white Buick became a key piece of evidence after a private investigator said that a white Buick had been parked on the Houck farm the night that Crystal went missing. The grandmother of Nick and Brooks, Anna Whitesides, owned a white Buick at the time, and coincidentally sold it just a couple of weeks after Crystal had disappeared. A car dealer says that Nick Houck and Anna Whitesides came to his car dealership to sell him the white Buick, but they wanted it sold just as is. They said that the dealer could not inspect the car at all. He couldn't look inside or anything. Just simply from them pulling up onto the car lot, they expected him to buy it. This was a red flag for him, and he turned them down. I believe the car was sold privately to someone else later on. A subpoena was issued for the grandmother, Anna Whitesides, to testify. The subpoena stated that the car may have been used to dispose of remains, was cleaned, and then sold to hide evidence. Anna Whitesides refused to testify. In August of 2016, Whitesides and Nick Houck's residences were searched for DNA evidence. In August of 2021, the FBI searched a subdivision where Brooks Houck's construction company had built homes. And on August 27th of 2021, the FBI said that an item of interest had been discovered in the concrete of one of the homes. It wasn't mentioned what that product of interest was or if they had found anything else. In September of 2023, the Nelson County Grand Jury indicted a local man named Joseph Lawson on conspiracy to commit murder and complicity in tampering with physical evidence. In October of 2023, October 5th, Brooks was arraigned on a murder charge at the Nelson Circuit Court. Then in December of 2023, Joseph's father, Steve Lawson, was also indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit murder. In May of 2025, Steve was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. He was sentenced to 17 years in prison. In July of 2025, Brooks was found guilty of murder and complicity in tampering with physical evidence, and Joseph Lawson was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. On September 17th, 2025, Joseph Lawson was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and Brooks Houck was sentenced to life. Special Prosecutor Shane Young calls Nick Houck an unindicted co-conspirator. When he was asked about what happened to Crystal, he swore he didn't know anything. But that's one of the things that I find hard to believe, because his brother did it, and they were close, so he had to know something. One of the theories that goes around is that Nick and Brooks were discussing the murder of Jason Ellis, and Crystal overheard. So she knew too much, and they had to take care of that. And the gruesome theory about why her body was never found is that she was fed to the hogs on the farm. I hope that that isn't true, because I'd love for her family to have closure one day and be able to give her a proper goodbye. But if you know anything about hogs, they'll eat anything, including a person. I personally believe that Nick is involved, just like I think he's involved in Jason Ellis's murder. But because of his background at the police department, he may have been able to hide things a little better than any regular citizen. He could use his power on the police department for many different things when it comes to shady business. I don't want to say, yeah, Nick did it for sure, 100%, because I'm not here to accuse. but it all just makes too much sense. And for his name to keep coming up, I mean, there's got to be something. I don't know if they're missing a key piece of evidence in order to tie him to everything, or if they've got a plan up their sleeve and they're waiting for the right moment, or what it is that they're doing. But I do hope that if Nick is involved in the disappearance of Crystal and the murder of Jason Ellis, I hope that one day justice finds him and this whole thing can be closed completely. Next week will be the final episode of the Bardstown 5 series. It ties in directly with this week's video. And after telling the story next week, I'll be able to give more of my why as far as why I believe Nick is involved in the murder of Jason Ellis. Next week's story is a cold case from 2016. I'm really surprised that it's not been solved yet based on some of the information out there. But, I mean, they could be planning something. I don't know. But, yeah. So next week, we will end the Bardstown 5 series, and my closing thoughts will finally make sense because they'll finally come together. Feel free to give your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. We don't accuse here, but we can have theories. Also, feel free to leave suggestions in the comments for cold cases in the state of Kentucky that you would like to hear about. I will read those comments, I will do the research, and I will do the videos, as long as they are a cold case from the state of Kentucky. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.